At 1:03 a.m., my phone screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen in 4 years. Dad. I watched it ring, feeling as though every vibration carried a warning. The last time we spoke, he had cut me out of his life because I refused to hand over my share of the family business. After that, there was nothing but silence. So when I finally picked up, I already knew something was wrong. Lena, he said, his voice sounding tired and strained. What happened? We need to talk about the will. Come home this weekend. Okay. The call ended. He wasn't reaching out because he missed me. He was calling because something was falling apart, and I had a strong feeling I knew exactly where to start looking. By the next morning, I was speaking with Grant Mercer, the family's attorney. So he contacted you, Grant said. Tell me what's really going on. There was a brief silence, followed by a heavy sigh. Your father's health has worsened. He's been depending on your brother to make most of the decisions. I clenched my jaw. And Owen? Not good. Grant explained that managers had been quitting, clients were walking away, and projects were losing money. Reports were being adjusted before they ever reached my father's desk. Nothing illegal, at least not yet, but enough to concern anyone paying close attention. For years earlier, I had warned Dad that Owen cared more about approval than responsibility. Owen had an effortless smile, spoke with confidence, and could win over a room within minutes. But whenever things became difficult, he found someone else to deal with the consequences. Dad chose to believe the son who appeared successful instead of the daughter who asked questions he didn't want to hear. Does Dad know? I asked. Not everything, but he knows enough to want you back. I'll be ready. On Saturday, I drove up the familiar road beneath the oak tree Dad had planted when I was 10 years old. The white fence was overdue for a fresh coat of paint. The house looked unchanged, which somehow made the situation feel even worse. 3 vehicles were parked outside. This wasn't a family gathering. It was a business meeting. Inside, my aunt, 2 advisors, Dad, and Owen were already seated around the dining room table. Owen greeted me with the same smile he always wore when he believed victory was already his. Dad looked thinner, older, less certain than the man who had once ordered me to leave and never return. Sit down, he said. No greeting, no apology, just business. He talked about stability, protecting the company's future, and maintaining continuity. Owen would continue to play a role. The current management structure would remain unchanged. The speech sounded polished, but hollow. I waited until he finished. Then I began asking questions. Questions about clients who had left. Questions about experienced employees who had resigned. Questions about budgets that kept growing. Questions about projects that never seemed to be completed on time. At first, Owen answered confidently. Then his confidence turned into irritation. Eventually, it became silence. The advisors stopped agreeing with everything being said. My aunt lowered her eyes to the table. With every response, Dad's expression shifted. Then I placed my folder on the table. The sound echoed through the room. Dad opened it. Inside were records of departing clients, resignation letters, independent audit findings, and reports from consultants who had been hired specifically to provide honest assessments. He turned page after page. With each one, more color disappeared from Owen's face. No one told me about any of this, Dad said. I know, I replied. You told me they retired. He snapped at Owen. Most of them did, Owen muttered. Their letters say otherwise. No one came to his defense. The atmosphere turned ice cold. When Dad reached the final report, he looked up. This has been happening for years. Yes. He turned toward Owen. Is any of this inaccurate? Owen opened his mouth, then shut it again. For once, there was no smooth explanation waiting. Dad ended the meeting and told everyone to leave. Even Owen. Over the following week, independent reviewers verified every piece of information I had presented. The company wasn't beyond saving, but it had been mismanaged for far too long. A week later, we gathered again. This time, the room felt quieter. Dad sat at the head of the table holding a folder with both hands. First he looked at me, then at Owen. I made mistakes, he said. No one spoke. I trusted one of my children without asking enough questions, and I stopped listening to the other. The words were simple, but they were genuine. He explained that the company would no longer depend on a single successor. A leadership team would oversee operations. Additional safeguards would be implemented. Responsibility and oversight would be shared. Then he looked directly at me. Lena, I should have listened. Those words didn't repair everything, but they opened a door I had long believed was permanently sealed. I never wanted Owen ruined. I never wanted my father embarrassed. What I wanted was for the truth to finally be spoken. And for the first time in years, it was. When the meeting ended, Dad walked me to the front door. The afternoon sunlight stretched across the porch. I hope this isn't the last time you answer when I call, he said. I slipped my keys into my pocket. Then don't wait another 4 years. He nodded, as though he finally understood that the true inheritance had never been the company. It was the opportunity to start over without deception. For the first time since that 1:03 a.m. phone call, I believed we finally might.